Good evening, everyone. I'm so excited to have Marlene Watson-Tara today with us, and she is one of the pioneers in plant-based eating, and that's our actually the topic for today as well. So thank you, Marlene, for being here today and sharing all your knowledge and experience with us. So I'll first introduce you, and then over to you. Help us understand what you do, who you are, and how we can actually understand this entire philosophy of going vegan. So, Marlene Watson-Tara is a pioneer in plant-based nutrition and is based in London. She's a high-profile health educator, macrobiotic counselor, and a cooking teacher with over 40 years of experience in plant-based nutrition and lifestyle. Marlene's dietary learnings are driven from the field of macrobiotic nutrition and her studies in traditional Chinese medicine. Marlene is a graduate of the Colin Campbell Center for Nutrition. She's also a teacher of chiball, yoga, pilates, tai chi, qigong, based which are the modalities based on the principles of traditional Chinese medicine and five transformations. Marlene is also an author of five books, and her latest book, Go Vegan, has been recently launched in India. So, Marlene, over to you. Help us understand, who you are and all about the revolution that you're trying to bring in the plant-based world.
Thank you, Deepti, and first of all, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Just for your audience to let you know, Deepti has had to upload my slides, so she's in control of changing over the slides, and she's had to adjust some of the typeface. So trust me, the Go Vegan it sees it is not done by it's not done by me, and it was very beautifully. But apparently, the way we're working here on different Google Chromes and stuff. Anyway, so Deepti is going to be the top girl, and I'll just chat away, and then I'll ask you to change over to the slide.
And this is going to be challenging, Marlene, because I have the control. So whatever slide I like first, I'll start playing that. So you have to shift gears accordingly.
So you have to be paying attention, Deepti, no falling asleep, okay?
No problem. I would not, don't worry.
Well, good evening to all your audience in India, and hi to anyone else around the world. Health, animals, and nature have really been the heart of everything that I've taught over these past decades, and it's always exciting to me to have the prospect to share my passion for a vegan world with a new audience, or even an old audience if there's any other people on here that already know me. It's not difficult to go vegan, so whatever I can do to increase veganism globally, that is my life's passion, and I will continue year after year until I do this. So the important thing I want to try and get over today is that when the winds of change come, they are coming. The world is changing very fast. It's very important to have a strong foundation, and to have a strong foundation means simplifying your life. I mean, that's how simple Go Vegan is. It's basically anything that you can eat that's plant-based without harming anything else on the planet is going to contribute to what we all need to do collectively. So, but there's something about veganism that some people do not find easy. And the difficulty is not inherent in veganism, it's in our culture. And when we think about that for a second, going vegan is simply a choice you make. You can do it right now, but many people live in their head and they overthink the whole concept. How do I start? Where do I go? So all you do is you take all the animal food out and you put all this delicious plant-based food in. It really is so simple, and the choice is yours. You can do it right now. So if I could come and stir the pot for everybody, I would. That's how passionate I am about changing people to move towards this way of life. Next slide, please. Okay, so common sense prevailing, it tells us that if we refuse to pay for animal products, then we stop the demand, okay, and sales would plummet. So if you think about this for a second, industrial food systems, they've reduced our food to things. It's unrecognizable in terms of food from evolutionary point of view. So food's now being produced in laboratories. I mean, do we want to eat food that grows in a lab? And then when we look at the destruction of our soil and water, 75% of that destruction of soil and water biodiversity comes from the industrial agriculture that we're reaping every single day. And that's contributing to, some people say 50%, but others say even a massive 87% contribution to greenhouse gases. I mean, it's just incredible. So these greenhouse gases are driving climate change. Now, chemical agriculture does not return organic matter and fertility to the soil. It demands much more water because it destroys the soil's natural holding capacity, water holding capacity. So, you know, there's so much to share. I try and put bullet points in to just cover some really important issues here. But if we could feed the world with the grain that we feed to the livestock, and you believe, as I do, Deepti, that we're all together, we're all brothers and sisters, around the globe right now, there's up to 1 billion people starving. And around the globe, there's nearly 1 billion people eating themselves to death. So we have to bring this balance back in any way we can. And that's where yin and yang, macrobiotics, philosophy of understanding, you know, we're all connected comes into play here. So, you know, the other big thing that we see hugely globally is mental health problems. And when many clients come to us for health counselling or students come and start to study with us, they suffer with deep depression. They've had many issues with their mental health in one way or another. But when you change their diet and we start to connect the gut biome and the brain, it's unbelievable. They say it's like a veil has been lifted off their face. They have this complete new way of looking at the world, and it's just really trying to put that across in a simple way. And we'll get into a little bit more about the microbiome later in the presentation, but that's in fact what we have to understand. We're not feeding Deepti, we're not feeding Marlene, we're feeding this 5 pounds of bacteria that live in our gut, you know, and when we give them great fibrous, healthy plant-based foods, they thrive. Okay, next slide, Deepti. I might hire you, you're actually flowing through well with this.
No, don't worry. I'm listening to you and I'm quite aware of what you're saying, so please carry on.
Okay, so a vegan approach to living is not new. Centuries old, actually, and for centuries, since the times of Pythagoras, thousands questioned the use of animals for food. Leonardo da Vinci, Leo Tolstoy, George Bernard Shaw, and Isaac Bashevis singers, just to name but a few. And you don't need to be a Nobel Prize winner to get the message. And even more important, you don't need to be a Nobel Prize winner to deliver the message. So, you know, Einstein was right. And the message underneath here, which I think you had to move from my slide, was the message is here and it's go vegan. Veganism. Okay, next slide. So ahimsa, as we all know, is a religious philosophy that believes that all life, including animals, are sacred, which applies to all living beings, of course. And it's a key virtue in the Dharmic religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism. And as a yoga teacher of many decades, my passion to share ahimsa with all my clients and students is, you know, the doctrine that all life is one and sacred, resulting in the principle of non-violence toward anything that lives. All living creatures is fundamental. So for me, you know, the combination of being vegan and teaching ahimsa through my yoga practices is very important to me. Next slide. I'm very blessed to have so many fantastic friends and colleagues around the world who, all of these wonderful people are actually on the advisory board of Bill and I's Human Ecology Project. I'm sure many of them may be familiar to some of you that are watching. They're all incredible humans, you know, they've been speaking their truth for decades after decade. They never changed their story. And scientists, medical doctors, professors, psychologists, you know, professors of law and human rights, their work is so commendable, and I bow down to all of them in admiration and thank them daily for the work that they do in the world. Next slide. Okay, so this one was changed. So because you have a PowerPoint one that I was going to use on my slide. Anyway, this is my beloved mum, but we'll move on from that just now because I have another story coming about that. Number 7, next slide. What's your motivation? Here's a question that everybody has to ask themselves every day. Is it health? So much disease, so much suffering. I see it every day. I have currently 6 clients with cancer right now. And, you know, for me, I tell everyone health is everything, and without health, everything is nothing. So my message to all who come for counselling is the non-communicable diseases that are killing humans daily are climbing instead of depleting. So we have to work harder, all of us, you know. So if it's your health, which mostly is, that's the top one where people go vegan, or the animals, our animal kingdom, hugely unbelievable. 86 billion land animals are slaughtered every year for food. I mean, it's just incredible. And at any one time, I don't know if you're aware of this, but humans easily outnumbered by farm animals. A combined total of chicken, cows, sheep, and pigs living at any one time is 3 times more higher than the number of humans. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. So if it's not the animals, is it the environment? Perhaps you're concerned about the future. You've got children, you've got grandchildren. And, you know, nature is in jeopardy, you know. I mean, the planet's on fire, the oceans are dying, and we must all take action. So, you know, taking action for me is creating a vegan world. And all living organisms exist as interconnected parts of the natural whole. There's no element that's superfluous, not the smallest insect or microbe. We're all in it together, all of us, in this web that we call life. Okay, next slide. You know, all of us have a story. Who's Deepti? Who's Marlene? Why are you here? Why do you do what you do? Why do I do what I do? And I think it's always important to kind of, I love to share with my students when they study, why did they come? Why am I doing what I do? And, you know, when I was a kid, I wouldn't eat meat, and Mum fed me so much dairy, bless her. And, you know, 60 years ago, I was chronically constipated. Always had bad digestive problems. The doctor would tell Mum I had a lazy bowel. He would give her medication for me. I had terrible things called hives. It was like red welts that would come out in my skin, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, cut a big long story short. It was the dairy food. The dairy food was causing this, but when I was a teenager, my appendix burst and I was seriously ill and nearly died with peritonitis, which is blood poisoning. So here I am. You know, more than 50 years later.
And you're doing a wonderful job.
Yeah, and I came across this incredible human, Dr. Dennis Burkitt, who is just like one of my heroes. If you've never read his work, to just please read his book. You know, and
I've
you know him.
That down.
Oh my God, he's amazing.
But he's my, you know, I'm
incredible. And he went to Uganda and he worked with, you know, all sorts of cancer patients there and different things. But the whole thing about Dennis Burkitt was he trained at the Royal College of Surgeons in Edinburgh, and being a Scottish person, I don't know whether that's how I came across him or why I had an affinity, but his work is just amazing. And his work in Uganda with fibre and colon cancer is outstanding, and people are dying with bowel cancer every day. So his book, The Value of Fibre in Human Diets, should be on everybody's shelf in their home. And he said, very famously, the bigger the hospital, the more constipated the nation. And it makes sense, right?
That's so true. That's so true.
So true. So ever since then, I teach everybody about fibre and health. Okay, next slide. So this is an important one. You know, of course, everything's important, but for this one, how do we create harmony within our ecosystem? And I always like to go back to nature. I think it's the best learning point for any human being to look at. So we imagine we're a tree and we're growing in beautiful, healthy soil, and we're receiving balanced nourishment through the external roots, and we're able to thrive, and we flower and we bear fruit. So as humans, the same thing happens, but our root system is internal as opposed to the tree being external root system. And internally, namely the villi in the small intestine, they take in the nourishment from the internal soil that's created by the action of the microorganisms on the food that we eat. And this creates the internal soil. So if we kill the soil outside, we're killing the soil inside here. It's that simple. It's so easy to understand.
That's such a simple perspective. I mean, now if I think about it, that's how actually it is.
Yeah. Soil in, soil out, soil in. It's exactly. Like if you go along to your garden, deep and pour a big bowl of you know, toxic chemicals, the tree will die, the leaves will wither. So it's the same with the human body. And in the ecological crisis, you know, we're eating a toxic diet that creates huge imbalance in personal health and our relationship to nature. Everything's become toxic. So I like to always try and look back at cultural philosophy and think about civilization. It refers to one that obtains material and spiritual wealth by following the objective principle of the harmonious development of humankind, which to me is nature and society, mankind and mankind, and mankind and society. So to coexist in harmony with all is how we create health for our ecosystem, because we're all connected, animal, plant, human, all one. Okay, next slide. And I'm sure you hear this 100 times a day. If I could get $1,
the most common talked about topic in the nutrition world.
If I could get $1 for every time someone's asked me that, I would be a millionaire.
Oh yes, exactly. I agree. Right.
Well, we all know the 3 macronutrients are out there: the protein, the fat, the carbohydrate. But we all know protein is a macronutrient that's essential to building the muscle mass. And many people think it's only in animal products, but it's in everything that grows. A piece of kale, an apple, everything is balanced. Mother Nature didn't get it wrong, And chemically, protein is composed, as you know, of the amino acids, and which are organic compounds made up of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, or sulfur. Now, everything grows that has, everything that grows is protein, but most people challenge me all the time, but they couldn't tell me what a protein is. They couldn't tell me what an amino acid is. If someone came up and said, "Hi, I am an amino acid," they wouldn't know what that was, So that's why I always say knowledge is power. Nutritional knowledge is so important nowadays, because there's 1,000,001 different ways to eat and live out there. You don't know what to believe anymore, except go back to evolution. That's where you believe, the ancient wisdom. So knowledge is power, and developing as much information and working with people like yourself, like the people in our A team, people like Bill and I, ones that have been teaching, that have never changed their story. That's where you should get your information. Okay, next slide.
Marlene, I have a question here. Can I ask?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so where did this theory of protein and going high on protein, and protein is an absolute must, you should be going on supplements, where did this entire theory actually come from?
Well, first of all, the diet that the human ecology diet that we promote, which is a vegan version of macrobiotics, right? If you go back to how humans evolved, of course, as omnivores, but primarily, when they started migrating around the world, they had to adapt to whatever that environment was. So it could be there was no fruit, it was too cold to grow, so maybe they did have to catch an animal, right? But perhaps, listen, it's not as if the animals were roaming around. It was like if they caught one animal a year or whatever, and dragged it back to the cave. People have this big romantic notion, but we are, in fact, if you think about how our brains grow or how we even survive on a day-to-day basis, we do not have energy to burn from protein. We burn from carbohydrate, which is glucose, which is blood sugar, and that's where we get our energy. But in terms of protein, I could show you the muscles in my body, and I haven't eaten animals in decades. So what's building my muscle mass, Because of a combination of protein in everything that we eat, and you have higher forms of protein like, the beans, the legumes, the tempeh, the tofu, less in obviously the vegetable kingdom. But I'm going to talk a little bit about vegan athletes in a minute as well. But we do not need animal source protein for muscle mass. You build unbelievable muscle mass without it.
Wow.
Makes sense?
Yes, definitely.
So, my little piggies. Now, respect for all life. That is my passion. It's where our focus must go. If we honestly all say we have a desire to create a healthy world, we've got to be kind to all creatures, their family, their relatives, whatever you want to call them. And Bill and I were teaching in Galway in Ireland for a few years, and quite a lot of farmers came to our workshops. They all had, non-communicable diseases, fatty liver disease, hemochromatosis, you name it, they had it. And it was just incredible, actually, to see them embrace the way they could live without eating animal food. So they all went vegan, and I saved these beautiful pigs from slaughter. Now, I would go visit them in the field, and they are the most beautiful animals, right? And I want to really just have a word for pigs here, right? Because, they're so social, they're clean, they're very clever, they nurse, and they sing to their young when they're nursing. I mean, it's just incredible, the communication that they have. They don't eat like pigs, contrary to what people say. People say they pig out. They prefer to eat slowly. They savour their food. Much more humans could learn from them. What do humans do? They bite and swallow. We don't even chew our food properly, you know. We forget that the stomach don't have any teeth. So it's good to remember what we can learn from animals, but just such beautiful, beautiful animals. Okay, next slide. So changing your diet rarely occurs along the path of least resistance, right? I think most of the world would agree with that. And we usually eat too much and move too little, and we feel stressed all the time. So what can we do? We can go vegan. There's so many exciting facts about making vegan choices, and no matter where I am in the world, this is what I teach. So let's say it together, Deepti. Food makes the blood. Blood makes the cells.
Blood makes the cells.
Cells makes the tissues. Tissue makes the body. And here we be. Yeah. That's how simple it is.
That's right? Absolutely right. Yeah.
Nothing more simple than that. Okay, next slide. So there's a growing list, huge list of world-class vegan athletes who are at the top of their game. And they have a fully vegan life to thank for it. Now, the vegan diet provides athletes with all the protein, as I said earlier, the complex carbohydrates and all the other nutrients that they need to get stronger and faster, and without any artery clogging, cholesterol, saturated fats that are found in animal foods, you know. So these foods exacerbate inflammation, which can result in pain and impair athletic performance and recovery. So when studies show that a plant-based diet has anti-inflammatory effects and therefore recovery from injury time is very, very fast. And I know this because, you know, I've worked with quite a lot of athletes myself. The vegan diet helps to improve blood viscosity or blood thickness, if you will, and that helps more oxygen reach the muscles, which improves athletic performance. So it's a win-win-win situation. It's incredible. And, you know, you can just look up vegan athletes now. They're all over the world. It's just phenomenal, phenomenal.
And I guess the trend is just growing.
Absolutely huge. Yeah, huge. There's whole websites dedicated to it. Bill and I were teaching in London one time, and Patrick Bugleman, the strongest man in the world, we met him, and he's been vegan a long time. And you should, you know, you can look up his website too. Loads of links. Just research. Incredible. Okay, next slide. So the industrial food system, apart from anything else, as we all know, it's completely destroyed the biodiversity of the planet, both through the spread of monocultures and through the use of poisons, which are killing the birds, the bees, the insects, the butterflies. It's heartbreaking. But on the other hand, biodiversity and intensive and poison-free agriculture produces more nutrition per acre while rejuvenating the planet. So I have so much good news about going vegan that it's impossible not to follow what I do and just say, come on, Marlene, I'm doing it. I'm on board. Right? That's it.
Exactly. And I guess you're actually so excited. It's not, you're not making it up. Your body actually feels so lighter. You really want to be, you know,
feels amazing.
Think of yourself. Exactly.
Feels amazing. And, you know, you can grow 17 times more food per acre with plants. Vegetables store well. Grains and beans store for years and years. Plants are easy to grow. Vegetables never grow microbes. Well, maybe an odd time, I think there was a disease with spinach or something one time I remember, but that came from the water. And vegans save 1,100 gallons of water daily, so being vegan cuts your carbon footprint in half in a heartbeat. And the good news about going vegan is just endless. I could be here for a day, a week, a month telling you about it. Next slide, Deepti. So this was in Portugal when we lived there, and of course I love growing all my own food. In the process, you also improve soil fertility and crop productivity. And veganic gardening, which I started doing in Scotland, uses no animal manure, so I don't use anything from animal. I just avoid the use of toxic sprays and chemicals. And my soil fertility was maintained using vegetable compost like green manures, crop rotation, mulching, other sustainable ecological methods. It's just, we can do this, you know. Next slide. So, you know, currently Bill and I, we're not far from London. We don't have, we have big field here, but we don't have an outdoor space for growing. So I sprout constantly. always growing food in the kitchen. It's so easy. I rotate my tiers all the time. You know, I've got lentils, chickpeas, mung beans. They're so delicious. You can use them in snacks and soups and sandwiches. And, you know, if you think about it, it's very similar to the beginning growth of a seed. You know, in the spring, you see that little speckle of the earth popping up, this little green sprout. So it's just the same, doing it internally. Whereas you couldn't eat the seed like that, but when you sprout it, you digest it, and it turns into a nourishing plant, which is high in enzymes and chlorophyll and really loaded with nutrients. So I use that really all year round to add a little bit of raw food to our cooked meals. Next slide. Nice. So our human ecology diet, it's our dietary recommendations come from our teachings of macrobiotics. The word itself, as you know, just means macro, big, large, bios, life, the big life, living your life to the great potential. And, you know, the work that we do is based on the principles of Oriental medicine from the traditional Chinese medicine, the 5 transformations of energy. It's the most common sense approach to life I have ever, you know, come across. It's just always creating balance with your environment. It's just so fantastic. And a simple vegan diet based on the selection of whole cereal, grains and vegetables from land and sea, eaten in a variety of ways, raw cooked, a little bit fermented, beans, some bean products, miso, tofu, tempeh, fruits, etc. And some natural sweeteners. And the diversity of meals from this food group is completely phenomenal. People are mind blown. I mean, you know, when they actually come to some of our courses, or if I'm training chefs, they just can't believe the diversity rather than having meat, you know. They see what they can create, so it's wonderful. Next slide. So this is my suggestion. You know, we keep things very simple. And we begin incorporating more whole grain, more beans, more legumes, nuts and seeds into your diet. And you start cooking some very vegan recipes. You know, I always say to the clients, what's your favorite meal? Is it Mexican? Is it Chinese? Is it Thai? Is it, you know, Indian? Find a few of your favorite dishes and just take out the meat and the dairy and put in the beans and the legumes and, you know, a vegan sauce or whatever. And make it simple for people to adapt to that way of eating. And also, planning ahead is very important, because people think, oh, I don't have time to cook. But if they simplify their life in some other ways, which can be done, you can create some extra time, you know, and allow you to prep meals and, you know, cook once and eat 2 or 3 times. But not only does it help boost your mental and physical well-being, you know, I would just love to be able to go and assist everybody that find this difficult, because seriously, when people come to my workshops and classes, they can't believe how easy this is, you know. It's just the over-processing, the overthinking all the time. But the other thing is, when you know exactly why are you doing this? Why are you going vegan? Remember, go back to the motivation. Is it your health, the animals, the environment? You just don't stray from this way of life. You find the why of why you want to do this. And that's, for me, is very important as well. Okay, next slide. So we already have this motivation because we have our why, okay? And I don't really like to use the word willpower. It's, to me, very weakening. But what I like to do is show people how to build skill power, right? Really get them skilled in the kitchen. And, you know, as I said, planning meals, putting time on your side when you're super busy, you know, use an Instant Pot, you know, steer your family towards vegan meals all the time, cooking the same meals for everybody. Now, I don't cook every day from fresh. I cook 2, 3 times, 4 times a week. I'm always freezing and keeping food in the fridge, you know, because I'm hugely busy, you know, like most people. So I would rather people did this than try and struggle every day to cook from scratch when they're probably going to fail, like most people do. I mean, I've got clients with single mums with 3 kids and, you know, trying to get them to school and going to work full time. And, you know, so we've got to make it accessible for people. And the other thing,
I guess this is one of the reasons why, you know, people are not able to sustain to this.
Yeah. Well, I do quick meals for busy people. Quick meals, so easy, it's fantastic. Anyway, the other thing I want to say is, please don't fall into the trap of eating vegan junk food, because that's another downside. Because people then say, well, you know, I don't feel the energy, I'm gaining weight, but they're buying, it's just all processed junk, you know, that they're buying. So Batch cooking, a fantastic way using frozen produce. Why not? You know, if you can get organic frozen vegetables from the freezer, perfect, you know. And also I call it the taste bud rehab, because people's taste buds have kind of gone to sleep. You know, they've been eating a very over-processed diet of meat and sugar and fat. And the taste buds have, goodbye, gone to bed a long, long time ago. So they can sometimes eat this food and think it's bland. But when you start to use the 5 tastes, as we do in, you know, TCM and macrobiotics, you've got sweet, sour, salt, bitter, pungent. It's phenomenal, you know. So the taste buds are alive, and people actually say, I've never tasted such delicious tasting food. I don't have any cravings. So that's wonderful. And you know, they get excited then about the changes that they're making. If I give somebody a bowl of bland food, they're not going to stick with that. No. You've got to make the food tasty and exciting. And, you know, I've written 5 books. When I wrote the last book, Go Vegan, it's very different from some of my other books, like which are more very macrobiotic based. But the Go Vegan book, I'm trying to bring the world to the table, you know. So it does have a lot more diversity to it. Okay, next slide, Deepti. So many people think they have a kitchen because it came with a house, right? They actually don't even know what to do in the kitchen. And I kid you not, I've been at homes where people have never chopped a vegetable. I went to one home, the woman didn't even know how to work her halogen hob. We had to look online to find instructions how to switch it on. So I don't care whether you're an experienced chef or someone that's never chopped a vegetable. I want to work with you. That's what we have to keep doing. But you know, that's why I say people think they have a kitchen because it came with the house. But cooking really has seriously become a lost art, and health and healing does start in your own kitchen. So getting people back into their kitchens is the way to go. Whether you buddy up with somebody in your house or whether you do it with a friend, you know, it's got to be fun as well. When things are fun, people will do it. So we got to consider the diversity of our foods and our food cultures and the role of biodiversity in maintaining our health. Otherwise, the fake meat and all the fake vegan products come back in, and that's really not the way forward either. You're not going to get the vitality and the energy from it. So I designed this course many years ago, and it was a huge success. When I had the cooking school, and they came 4 weeks, they could join in at any time, you know. So they might have joined when we were on soups, or they might have joined when we were on desserts, but they rolled over. You know, they got these beautiful recipes. They have education from Bill and I, because we're teaching nutrition and everything at the same time. They all sat down and enjoyed lunch together. It's a huge success. So perhaps sometime in the future, I'll bring that back to my world. Okay, next slide. And then, you know, when these people have mastered and created new health, love cooking, love the food, they can become a lighthouse and help others. And quite frankly, a lot of clients that we have end up being students, and that's how we get, you know, students around the world too. So you're then helping and assisting other people. And some of the students we have done amazing things around the world. They've opened vegan cafes, they've opened restaurants, they're private chefs, they're health coaching. You know, some are actually, you know, working on yachts and doing private cooking and all sorts of stuff. So huge diversity, and, you know, spreading the word wherever they go. So being a lighthouse is very important, and we need millions of lighthouses switched on now, millions. So we've got to keep pushing out and calling out more lighthouses. Okay, next slide.
May you get a lot of lighthouses.
You know, another misconception is that people think that eating a vegan diet is very elitist. And of course, you know, I train chefs for royal families and movie stars, but I also create recipes for Action Against Hunger, where I've lived on £1 a day. Okay, now don't tell the royal chefs this, but I use the same food. Okay.
No problem. I won't tell. Don't worry.
Yeah, you know, I just know how to make it look like wow, or, you know, as we all do it. So it's not elitist, and I'll share with the next 5 or 6 slides, you know, how easy it is to be able to do that. But to get back a little bit to the parable of George Kosawa, who brought Macrobiotics to the USA from Japan. 1 grain, 10,000. It's such a beautiful explanation of the importance of giving to others and The phrase refers to how a single grain can then be germinated and eventually gives birth to 1,000 grains. And if we follow that example of nature and use this as a guiding principle for how we should live our lives, we can find true health and happiness, you know. So we follow in the path of nature that continuously gives through food and air and water. And we believe, like, if someone gives you something of value, then we should be prepared to return it or give it forward 10,000 times. It's so beautiful. Next slide. So if we didn't feed the grains that are grown to livestock, we could feed the whole world, right? Whole grain and grain products are the cornerstone of any healthy diet. And short grain brown rice, I wax lyrical about this. It's one of my top drawer foods, I call it. We have it every morning. And I was doing this experiment for a couple of groups. And you can have this for 16 pence per portion, plus the toppings that you're putting on. It's the most nutrient-dense food. I mean, it's incredible. So, you know, we add some hemp seeds and chia seeds, some sunflower, pumpkin seeds or whatever. Now, I don't cook, as I said earlier, every single day. So I cook a batch that does Bill and I for the week. It's in a big glass container in the fridge. I take out each morning. I warm the rice with water. Or sometimes when we have students here, I'll use some plant milk until they get used to the you know, because it doesn't taste sweet to them in the beginning until they start really chewing the grain. So my whole ethos is, you know, breakfast is the most important part of the day, and we're breaking the fast from however many hours you've been fasting from the day before. So we breakfast like a king, we lunch like a prince, and we dine like a pauper. Okay, next slide.
Perfect.
So, you know, one of the soups that I create many soups, but quick bites and rollovers, I call them, rather than leftovers. I like to use the word rollovers, rolling over the next day, that even 2-3 days. And whether you're cooking for one or cooking for a whole family, it's just as easy, you know. And I've created literally hundreds and hundreds of recipes over decades for my quick meals for busy people workshops. Now, this recipe here: corn, red pepper, onion, garlic, spring onions, a little bit of coconut cream, and coriander and chives. It's more like warming than stirring, and stirring a pot. You can basically, if needs be, purchase these things already chopped, right? So that's what I do in my quick bites and rollover classes, because quick bites for quick meals for busy people classes, because, as I said earlier, I have mums that are working 9 hours a day with kids.
Yeah.
They don't even have time to chop. So I say, great, let's go. What works for you? Get the frozen veg. They're already chopped and prepped. You're warming and serving, but you're still having good, nutritious food. So we've got to adapt this way for everybody that works for their life. Next slide. And, you know, even like energy balls, bombs, whatever you want to call them, kids can make these. I use aduki beans with some cocoa powder and some pecans. It's so easy, and some beautiful dates. They freeze well. You can make up a big batch and keep them in the freezer for months. It's much easier than baking cookies, and you still have that delicious, nutritious, sweet dessert. Next slide. Lentils. Well, what can I say? Unbelievable. The oldest cultivated legume, and you can make soups, stews, and dals, and burgers, and bolognese, and salads, and patties, and, you know, the choices are endless. You have red, green, brown, and they're basically pennies, you know. Okay, next slide. Mung beans I'm hugely fond of. I sprout them as well, but I made these burgers, and they are just so unbelievably inexpensive. 1 kilo bag of mung beans was £2.25, and there was 8 cups of beans in the pack, right? So I used 2 cups to make 24 burgers. Wow. So unbelievable, right?
And this looks so tempting.
Yeah, some sweet French fries, some salad or side greens, and it's not expensive. I mean, honestly, it's pennies. So these are some of the most cost-effective recipes that I create for, you know, families on a very low budget. And as I said, whether you're cooking for royal families or whether you're cooking for people that are a very, very low budget, the food's delicious and nutritious, and you can make it look stunning. The next slide, Deepti. So applesauce, same again, dress it up, eat it straight from the jar, you know, 2 ingredients, water and apples. I usually actually make that in the Instant Pot, tiny little bit of water, 7 minutes, bingo, done. Maybe some oat cream or some of my granola I dress that with, and it's just absolutely delicious. Sometimes I put it in my morning porridge, sometimes I put it on sourdough bread when it's toasted crisp. We have it with cornbread, beans and greens. I mean, the diversity is incredible. Next slide. Of course, in Go Vegan, there's some delicious cakes there, because you can have your cake and eat it, as the saying goes, but more decadent desserts like this, you know, carrot cake or lemon tart or the black and white chocolate cake, I would use on occasion for, you know, birthdays or friends and family coming. But, you know, for everyday treats, Bill and I, we love fruit, we love applesauce, we love cantons, and all these recipes are in the book anyway, but you know, when you have a special occasion, I make these with ease. They're not complicated. Next slide. So, you know, our vision is to make vegan the new normal for the animals, for our water, for our health, for our planet, for world hunger, for just absolutely everything. And that's what makes me jump out of bed every morning, because I'm so passionate. I'm not I don't have any dogma to prove anybody wrong or that I'm right. I just know in my heart that's what my life's work is, and I love and live it every day. And apart from my beloved Bill Tara, that's what makes me jump out of bed every morning. Next slide. And, you know, there's so much activism out there which is violent, which is shouting and screaming at restaurants where they're serving meat in supermarkets. Crazy, you know, non-violent education is the way to move forward, with peacefulness, with education, showing people, bringing them to the table. But also it's important never to be afraid to speak out and follow your heart and do what you feel is right for you, and not run blindly with the crowd. You know, be proud of what you feel in your heart is to be right. And, you know, my advocacy work as a vegan comes in many forms, and I write to the world daily. I write to the Pope, the royal family, governments, world leaders, movie stars, you name it, anybody that's got a pulse. I write to them, you know, I send them copies of our books. And Bill says I spend all my money at the post office.
That's worth it, don't worry.
But, you know, it's about you and me, and we're the ones who are bringing about change, the ones that are bringing on more lighthouses with non-violent, peaceful education. No screaming, no shouting, no street theatre, because it switches people off. Okay, next slide.
That's right.
And, you know, we must meet people where they're at and you know, assist them all to go vegan. But, you know, I said earlier, when you speak the truth, you never have to remember what you say. And my dad always taught all his kids that as well. And like my 18 members, my story's never changed. You know, we are animals that can quite happily and healthily thrive on a plant-based vegan diet, not processed junk food, real whole foods. And every major health institution in the world has on their website. I mean, what a gift that is now. You can live a long, happy, healthy life on a vegan, balanced diet from birth to death. You know, I was just cooking a buffet there for a 1-year-old vegan baby's birthday party. I had been counselling the couple, and the baby was born, and, you know, he's fit, healthy, wonderful, you know. So I completely believe in a vegan world as possible, much as like Copernicus believed that he would change everybody's mind that the earth revolved around the sun.
No, but I guess it's about one lighthouse, and then you just keep lighting.
Exactly. Yeah. Next slide. So I invite every one of you to join us, and it only takes one grain of sand to turn the tide. And remember, that grain of sand could be you, could be me, it could be the next door neighbor. And the world needs all of us right now, because there's nothing new under the sun. And, you know, if you think how powerful we all are powerful. We all have a voice, and we should use it for the better good. So thank you. And I will close with my opening words, which were, go vegan, it's easy. There you go.
Thank you so much, Marlene. I mean, so much to grasp in those 40 minutes. You've actually created so much of an awareness, talking everything about food, not just food. I mean, you know, how it's impacting environment, and, you know, how it's also impacting our pranic power. And I guess, I mean, before I move on with anything else, I really want to thank you for bringing in this topic of how food has this impact on your prana, or how you feel, because this is one factor that really needs to come out. And I could make some co-connections when you were speaking about this. if you get deeper into yogic philosophy and yogic understanding, and how ancient yoga gurus have always looked at foods is from the pranic perspective, right? Specifically, I don't know if you're aware of this yoga guru, Paramhans Yogananda, if you heard of him.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another one, Swami Shivananda. So these are like, ancient traditional yoga gurus who actually have their own legacy going on till today. Specifically, Paramhans Yogananda has spoken so much about pranic power. So he's one guru who had a very scientific bent of understanding things, and also correlating it with the pranic power. So he talks everything about nervous system, and how that if you can just learn to balance your nervous system, your prana automatically gets balanced. But the beauty of the entire session that I loved was that you brought in this single concept, and that kind of really testifies that we really need to go beyond this narrow concept of proteins, calories, and counting our nutrients and eating that way.
Absolutely.
We really need to look beyond that.
Well, if you think back to, if we look at our ancestors, right, and how humans evolved on the planet, I mean, do you think they were, checking litmus paper and, counting calories and looking at GI? I mean, there's so much confusion about the glycemic index that it drives me insane. I mean, if you look up charts, they're like chocolate cake at 38 and grain at 96, it's crazy. So people are fearful and say, oh, I've got to eat low GI. Bill and I created our own reverse diabetes program many, many years ago. And we had people who came that were, I have to check my blood sugar every 2 minutes, and I can't have any high glycemic index foods. And of course, everything they were eating at the table was high glycemic index, starchy vegetables and whole grains and stuff. They all completely came off their insulin and reversed the diabetes as time went on. I mean, it's phenomenal. In fact, we have on our website, the Human Ecology Project website, I think it's on an ebook that Bill and I wrote on reversing diabetes. We have a Freedom from Cravings ebook that we wrote to help people because, of course people have cravings because food is addictive, especially dairy, cheese. Wow, you got that opiate in there. So when you stimulate dopamine and it's like, at once it's fixed, whatever that may be, understanding how you can help reduce the food cravings is hugely helpful. So there's tons of information on the website.
Yeah, and it's really confusing. I guess that's creating a lot of mess because someday some study comes out, the other day some other philosophy comes out. And really keeps
I think, Geeta, the only thing I can say is if you go back to the people that are speaking the truth, that have never changed their story, for all the people on our advisory board, even my husband Bill Tara, John McDougall, Colin Campbell, who I love, he's like my dad, I mean, I love Colin, he's a very special friend. These people have been speaking the truth for 50, 60 years nearly, right? And they don't, so marketing, sales, that's the bottom line. And, I think you have to look at the people. I have vitality and energy like someone in their 30s. I'm 65 soon. I don't know what it is to have a sneeze, a cold. Bill was 80 recently. We're like kids. We go hiking and biking. Where do we get our food from? We don't sit and go, oh, is that high glycemic index? Is that got enough protein?
Exactly.
No.
And the life is so, you've actually binded your life. I mean, there's no freedom because every time you're just counting what am I eating, how much is going
exactly.
in.
And people then think, do they have to become a biochemist to put dinner on the table? Exactly. Oh, no. Keep it simple. Go vegan. It's easy, right? That's why I called the book, Go Vegan, It's Easy.
Exactly. So actually that was my next question, but I think you've already answered that. So what I wanted to ask was if you look at the nutritional industry, it's just going leaps and bounds, as in, initially when the researchers happened and they found out, okay, these macronutrients and these micronutrients, and now we are getting deeper, these antioxidants, this antioxidant for the liver, this antioxidant for some other part of the body. And there's some, supplements also available, like, the specific, like, for example, for liver, there's glutathione, okay? And the people are just going crazy. The people who know about it are just going crazy, okay? So what's your take on that? I mean, we are just getting deeper and deeper into those micro components without looking at the big picture. But
I know.
What's your take on this theory?
Okay. Well, first of all, we take everybody off supplements. I mean, if supplements are working, why do people come to us for health counselling? Right? That's first of all what you have to say to yourself. If they're spending. I mean, there was one man in particular, he was spending like £90 a week he had a basket load of stuff. And I don't mean to be cruel when I say this. And he said, I need to book health counselling. I haven't been well, and I feel like, things are happening cognitively with me. And he brought a whole bag of supplements with him. And do you know what they were for? That most of them were about memory, and he couldn't even remember why he was taking them. And he was spending fortunes, right? Anyway, we take everybody off all supplements except B12. I mean, we don't even supplement with vitamin D, and we live in an overcast country, but the sun's always there. People just don't get outdoors enough. People are living indoors way too much, and that's one thing. The other thing I want to say is macro and micronutrients. Mother Nature didn't get it wrong. I mean, she packaged everything so beautifully. The body works like an orchestra. The fingernail's not saying, oh, whoa, hang on, I need some K2. Oh, this strand of hair needs B12. No, the body knows what to do. And the toxicity that we see with people that are taking all these supplements they're toxic to the body because you're taking them in isolation. If you take everything as a whole, if you take everything in the whole instead of in a part, that's where you get the health from, I mean, it's just crazy. So yeah, people are spending fortunes on supplements. I mean, billions. It's one of the biggest industries in the world, Why do you need them? You get everything from the food that you eat, And I mean, I don't even dissect. Of course, when we're teaching our students, we get into nutrition much in a bigger depth. But, if you look at fat, carbohydrate, protein, and then you get the macronutrients, and you've got all the micronutrients there, all the vitamins, all the minerals, it's in abundance. Look at your plate every day. Has it got lots of colours on it? Perfect.
And the other day I was having this podcast with Vern Verona. I mean, before you, he was there on the podcast. And one thing that I really liked about, and that kind of brought in a lot of clarity for me also, it's not only about bringing in all those foods in, but it's also about playing around with the tastes. I mean, the complexity of taste is what our body associates with and brings in a level of satiety, which actually made a lot of sense to me. And if I go back and look into how Ayurveda puts it across, there is no concept of calories, proteins, or micronutrients ever. It's Ayurveda is completely based on this philosophy of tastes and how do you balance in those tastes to bring about that balance.
Exactly.
And that that's so beautiful because whether it be the ancient Eastern theory or how people like you who are working in this field for years and bringing about those truths testify the fact that we really need to go beyond all of these fad theories coming in.
I mean, that's all they are, We always say anything that's new is usually not good for you. Anything that's old is, right? Because ancient wisdom, if you think about TCM in particular, 5,000 years of absolute, noting everything that happens with health and the body. And I mean, it's just incredible. Live with the seasons, eat locally as much as possible if you can to make balance with your environment. I know it's not easy because you can get anything you want from around the world. In the winter, you can buy pineapples when there's 10 feet of snow on the ground, But, if you follow these principles and just always think, hang on, how did my ancestors work this out? Did they look and see, I wonder how many micronutrients in it? No, they just ate,
That's how the world is. That's
Yeah.
how, actually, today the world is like that, counting everything what's in. So you're creating a restriction way before you start eating, I guess.
And everything becomes so complicated, but that's what
Exactly.
sells. Simple doesn't sell, right? Simple doesn't
Exactly.
sell, but go vegan, it's easy. There's about 100 recipes in there that anybody can make and have every vitamin, mineral known to man on the planet and live till they're 100 if they want, right? With great energy.
And this sounds so easy now after having this conversation. Thank you so much. But Marlene, before I end up the session, my last question to you would be, I think I should have asked that first, but no problem, I'll ask at the end. How did you got into all of this? I mean, 40 plus years of experience into plant-based eating and being a part of this revolution. How did you actually got into all of it?
I've always been an absolute fitness freak since I was a young kid at school,
And I resonate with you completely.
Oh my! I mean, when I was 16, you had to be 16 to join this first health club opened in Scotland, and you had to be 16 to join. I was like 15 and a half, and no, they wouldn't let me in. And it was the very first club, and I joined. And every day from school, and it was quite a long walk. I would walk to the town, to the centre, and I was completely in love with fitness all my life. But when I joined the health club, they had something called kelp. which I had never been exposed to before. Even although we had seaweed in Scotland and it was in bread, it was mostly dulse and things that we used. And this kelp was just like mind-blowing to me, and particularly because I'd had my appendix burst. Remember I said to you peritonitis, I was 13 when that happened. So I started researching sea vegetables. I was hooked. And and seaweed
at that age.
Yeah, and seaweed has been a huge part of my life, my whole life, whether I've been bathing in it, whether I've had it on my face as a facial, whether I've ingested it, whether I've taken it as supplements at any time. So then as I got older, I had my gallbladder removed not long after that as well. And that was the cholesterol build-up from the dairy, from being young. I had gallstones. And that's when really I think everything kicked in for me. I thought, this can't be right. And you know, in traditional Chinese medicine, they would never take the gallbladder out anyway. Now, when you don't have your gallbladder, your liver has to work harder. And because I was so into health from a very young age, I started researching what do you need to do to keep your liver in tip-top condition when you don't have a reservoir. Because when you don't have that reservoir for the bile to be released, you know, you got to be careful with your intestines not being flooded with, you know, bile all the time. And then it just moved from one thing to another. But then I started teaching aerobics. I know you need to finish now, so this was fun. And,
no, I'm absolutely okay.
In the UK, and the UK aerobics was like, you know, like just being launched, I guess, you know, from the States. Loved it, absolutely adored it. And then I get into TCM and yoga and everything as well. So the TCM thing for me, I love and adore, but the dietary principles for me just didn't work. And I was actually going to study to be an acupuncturist. I did study TCM for quite a while with some TCM doctors. But for me, the food is just, in fact, it's interesting because I actually do have quite a lot of TCM doctors clients that come to me with digestion.
Wow, that's interesting. That's so interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go. That was my story. So it was all about fitness and health from a very, very young age, you know. And I mean, my vitality and energy is the same as it was when I was 30, 40, 50, 60. You know, I mean, I don't know.
Beyond.
And beyond, absolutely. I hope to be teaching when I'm 100. Yeah.
And so this is actual health. I mean, you know, what you're living.
Yeah, I mean, vitality, like I never waken up, you know, Bill and I are together more than 2 decades. We've never seen each other with a sneeze, a cough, a cold, nothing, right? And people keep laughing at the two of us saying, what are you two doing? You're injecting something. We say, no, it comes from the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. So Marlene, help us understand, where can we buy your book? I mean, I'm too keen on, you know, learning all of this.
Well, on Amazon India, for the Indian people, you can get all our books: Macrobiotics for All Seasons, Go Vegan, Weight Loss Nature's Way, Macrobiotics and Human Behavior from Bill, How to Eat Right and Save the Planet from Bill. There's a whole host on Amazon India because the publisher that I told you that I just had, he's put them all up there. And then obviously in the States, in the UK, everywhere, they're on different platforms. Yeah. And all the royalties come to our Human Ecology project, so that's what's helping us to create more videos. You can probably see all the lighting equipment at the back of the room here.
Yeah. Yeah, so nice. So Marlene, let me know if I can be of any help spreading this word in India.
Thank you, Deepti. Wonderful to meet you. And thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I know it's late for you there, so I'm going to jump on my bike and go for a cycle.
All the best. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.